So today, guys, we are going to be looking at the SEO winners from the core update and the spam update. Now we're 2 weeks into both. I do think that we should be hearing about the conclusion of the spam update in the next 1 to 2 days or so. And by the time this goes live, maybe that would have been announced. But as of the 19th of March, 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, that has not been announced yet. The core update, we think we've got at least another 2 weeks or so to run. So let's have a look at which sites have gained in this update. But in particular, what we're going to do is actually have a look at the small websites, so the small publishers. We're not going to be having a look at the likes of Forbes and how many more keywords they've gained, or even Google themselves, which lo and behold have rewarded themselves with higher rankings. So big up first to Paul. So at Pavlos 1944, give Paul a follow. He's an incredible follow. He's the guy from Low Fruits, which is also an awesome keyword tool. Definitely check it out. He pulled together 11 sites that are currently gaining. What I've done is I've filtered this down just to sites that are sub DR20, so sites that on the face of it, according to Ahrefs, have little to no authority compared to some of the bigger guys. And I thought it'd be interesting just to dive into what they do, you know, essentially what is their blueprint, what seems to be working for them, and really what are some of the things that maybe Google are looking for kind of post this update. Again, huge footnote. This could all change tomorrow, right? By the time I publish this, all these sites could have tanked, they could have fallen off a cliff and, you know, whatever, we would have all lost out. But I think as of today, it's always good to have a look at which sites are working well, maybe just dig into why those sites are working well. So show notes of this are in the comments below, so you should have access to this. If you can't, drop me a comment. Otherwise, let's dive straight into it. So what have we got here? Meadowlark Journal. What I'm going to do is dive into the site, and then I'm going to jump into the Ahrefs metrics of these sites as well. So we can see that these guys, they've jumped from sitting close to 50k, topping close to 60k, potentially sort of plateaued in the last couple of days or so. But look, guys, a DR9. Having a look at this, it's a gardening site. By the looks of things, lots of sort of blog content. They also interestingly have a shop as well. What I'm going to do is actually just flick through some of the numbers just to show you that these sites are gaining incredibly well. And then what I'm going to run through is some observations as to why I think these have performed so well as well. Like what are some of the themes that we're seeing throughout all of these. And bear in mind, actually, these are all very different sites. You know, not all of them are shops and e-coms, for example. So first one, Meadowlark Journal. Second one, Hawaii Best Travel. Pretty much says what it does on the tin. So these guys, been a little bit more steady for these guys, sort of used to a bit of volatility, but sitting around maybe the 19-20k mark in Feb. Added another sort of a couple of percent on top of that. A DR20 right on the top of what we'd be reviewing. 15,000 keywords, though, all focused around travel in Hawaii, right? Quite self-explanatory. The burnt butter table, food and cooking, really interesting. A site specifically around pasta dishes and burnt butter. Jumping into their Ahrefs, having a look at the overview, DR16, wow, look at this. Averaging around about 45k, jumping up nearly 100k in just a week or so. So we'll definitely dig into this one here. I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce this. I could hit myself. Personal development site, which is really interesting. I've got it open somewhere along here. You guys can probably see it. I think I noticed manifestation and happiness as well. A little bit more left field, let's be honest. But part of a mastermind blog, they've got a podcast as well. Nothing too crazy about this, right? Massively gained so far in the update. What is Quinn reading? A book review site, often looking at romance novels. They do have some horror novels, but pretty much just a review site. a book review site, sorry. All types of books within those categories. Let's jump into their Ahrefs. You can see I was having a sneak peek of the keywords as well. DR8, a little bit of volatility, but if we have a look across the 6 months, they have technically net gains since September. If we have a look sort of since early March, where they're sitting around 17k, and they're now sitting pretty at 21k, you're not really going to argue at that, are you? Tops for days as well. I do have this up here somewhere. Tops for days. Women's fashion, more specifically women's tops as well. That's all they do, women's tops. Probably not the target market, but there's a hell of a lot of tops on the overview. Now, typically I'd pull some of these notes together yesterday. Looks like they've taken a little bit of a hit since I was checking these guys out at the start of the week, where they were plateauing around the 96, 97k mark. Seems to have dropped down somewhat, so I'll keep an eye on this to sort of see what happens to that. Still reporting net growth since the update went out 2 weeks ago, where they were sitting around 50k, so they nearly doubled in traffic, and now that looks to have halved somewhat. So if it holds around here, they're still going to be pretty happy about that, right? Again, DR9, site DR9, guys. And the final one here, Run Hive. As it says on the tin, a running site. More specifically, a software to, or a sort of a web app, I should say, to track runs, distances, all that fun stuff. You know, if you're into that, it's probably great for you. But again, having a look at this, DR9, let's jump into the Ahrefs metric. A nice sort of steady gain since the early part of March, from 29k jumping up to sort of 34, 35k, I should say. Low authority sites. So a lot of different sites there, right? All offering very different things, which is why Pavlos, big up, really well done on digging these sites out, because I think it gives us a lot of different insights, hypotheses, various different things to pursue. So what I've done is I've listed a number of these observations down below that I'm just going to run through. So the first one, I'm sorry, it's a little bit boring. A unique theme used across all the sites. Typically, I think we're finding that traditional PBN, link farms, sites that Google have known to go after for some time, and actually sites that I've seen get hit quite badly in this update, are all using a very commonly used theme, or a theme that we see everywhere across the web. The majority of these, no matter how basic they may be, are all pretty unique in their own sense. You know, and then they're not necessarily anything to write home about, in the sense of very simple aesthetics, serve the user exactly what they need. But they're all pretty unique in their own way, right? That was the first sort of observation with this. I mean, how many sites do you jump onto and we're met with essentially internals right at the top with images? Like, we don't even have a heading here. I'm not saying this is like SEO practice to follow, but what I'm saying is that it definitely screams sort of a custom feel about it. One thing we've always done with our clients, whenever we have actually built sites, and on the handful of occasions that we have done it, is we've always built them with a custom design, built them on top of Gutenberg with advanced custom fields, with a custom CMS or sort of WordPress backend, and they work a treat. Like, and you can get them done far more affordably than you could have done in the past as well. So if you're a real business, ditch the templates. Honestly, it's probably more economical, and you set yourself up for the better longer term by having something that's a custom design that's out of your own head, that we don't see every day across the web. And I do think that there's a signal that Google will like about that. The clients we've done this have held or gained. It's anecdotal. We've built probably 5 to 10 sites in the past, and then we've worked on them from an SEO perspective. they've all held or gained. We've not had any that have fallen foul, touch wood, so far of this update. I think there's something in that. So definitely create a site with a custom look. It's so easy to do, guys. Just do it. Number 2, the categories are highly niche specific. Huge caveat here. I know that niche sites, content sites are getting hit left, right, and center. But what I like about these sites is they certainly go deep on their specific subject without going too broad as well. And on the last video, we mentioned about going deep and not wide in your content. Do it with your site as well. Some examples here. Let me find Hawaii, pretty obvious. Burnt butter table, purely pasta recipes. They don't really touch anything else from what I understand. It's all sort of pasta based. Most sort of recipe sites that you come across that are smaller in nature, so I'm not talking about sort of the BBC and some of the other big publishers, cover extensive recipes across many different food groups. Maybe try something that's very specific around one type of food group. Run Hive, running tops for days, women's tops only. What is Quim reading? I mean, this is very focused around sort of romance and horror, so I guess there is sort of two there. I do think obviously there's other signals that come into this, as we know, right? And the personal side of this probably carries true with these guys in particular. Manifestation, happiness. Look, I'm not really into all this stuff, but you know, maybe you're in a category and this is something that's very specific to those sort of niches as well. And men deserve as well, purely focused on sort of men creams, products for their beards, faces, whatever, men's grooming basically, which is still a big category, but a specific one, right? So I think being specific, being highly targeted, and covering a category extensively are going to be the publishers that win out of this. I don't think we're ever going to get a SERP result that is a niche specific SERP that will just have 9 links of a niche specific site. You're always going to have some big publishers in there. I just think that's how the game is. But Google, I do believe, will always provide a niche supplier, a highly relevant supplier, in at least 1 or 2 of the spots, right? And I think this is also frequent because we still see evidence of EMDs working. We see it across our sites. I see it across competitor sites as well. EMDs, exact match domains, are still working. And I think that is also a strong signal of high relevance to a specific category. And as of today, again, 19th of March, still working really well. It might change in the future. They might start hitting them. I think the spam update to some degree that was targeting highly focused keyword blogs were looking to sort of hit more of these sites, but I don't think, from what I can see anyway, I think enough of these fly under the radar where they're not really going to get picked up in a manual action. If they don't have a great deal of links pointing to them, it can be hard for the algorithm to pick it up as well, especially if it's not in a YMYL niche where they're not really going to spend extensive time and resources monitoring those search, right? So I think EMDs and highly niche specific sort of sites, if they're not in categories that are super competitive, they've got enough to fly under the radar. And I think that is a big reason as to why these are doing well, basically. Another thing that I did also notice as well is, and it's a bit of a side conversation, but I don't think the creator of content matters too much. I actually think AI content will continue to work, but it's going to have to be well prompted. It's going to have human-like edits to it. I do think AI will evolve to the point where it can replicate those human edits. I do actually think if you prompt it enough now, you can replicate that, but the technology isn't there to hit one button to spit out a an article rather with those human-like edits at the moment. An example that I put here was an article on men deserve. Now this was ranking 61. I think it might have been for the keyword boys with fluffy hair. This has actually jumped to 4 in the update. Now I'm actually just going to double check this live on here as well. So, okay. You can see across here it's gained in a number of ways, right? Fluffy hair, 53 to 11. Now, I actually ran this through an AI detector. Again, huge caveat. Do I believe a lot of these? I think there's some weight, but I don't think you can trust them completely. But for argument's sake, let's say that it's super accurate. This is saying 61% generated by AI. So I actually don't think that AI generation in itself is a problem as long as there's human-like impacts to that content. Bit of a side observation that I will say, but I think the main point of here is categories that are highly niche specific will continue to work. And we see that because EMDs are still working, especially in categories that are lower in competition and are strictly not YM, YL as well. Another one that's harder to replicate, but the bulk or many of these sites, actually, they've got significant audiences across their social channels. So Men Deserve, 45K on Insta, Hawaii's Best, 197K, Burnt Butter Table, 156K. Even having a look at some of their About Us pages as well, I know that Meadow here, if I jump onto their About page, this is an awesome About page, by the way. Look, we've got links to qualifications in so many ways. This is essentially the on-page EEAT signals. You know, a page like this won't rank the site higher, but it helps build on-page trust with a Google bot that crawls it. And also, if you do have a manual reviewer checking your site and you've got a page like this, it's obviously going to work in your favor, right? So lots of unique imagery, qualifications listed with good links as well. And hey, lo and behold, we've got social channels up at the top here. You know, they actively link to these social accounts from the website themselves, such as the 3 listed below. These guys, you'd say, have a modest following in so many respects, but I'd still say that the signals outlined here are still pretty strong, right? So again, the audience numbers can help indicate authority in a specific category. It could even give the signal of trust as well and authority in that specific space. It's probably a signal that does help, again, without, you know, ranking the page specifically. If you're a big business, you've got these followings. As obvious it might sound, just making you know, or linking to those social channels with those significant followings could be an easy win. If you've got unique pictures of your team or the people that work on the site that aren't actively on the website, put them on the website, real images, custom imagery. If you do get a quality reviewer checking your site, it's all going to fight your cause. And if you've been hit with a penalty and your site is littered with custom imagery, real social channels with engagement, followers, you know, you've probably got a higher chance of getting that penalty overturned based on what that penalty is, right? So you might have this stuff in your armory. It might seem super obvious. Get it live on the site. That's it, right? I think I put here actually helps create both experience, authority, and trust, which these numbers can, albeit everything here can technically be manipulated. It's one level deeper to help building that trust, basically. Another thing that actually I sort of glossed over but I haven't spoken about, though all of these websites have blog content, it's a supplement to the business of some kind. So all of these sites that we've picked out, they've actually got a core business that the website is there to service. So these aren't pure content sites by themselves. Their content is there to supplement the business. And I do think that genuinely there's something in there. I think if Google sees a site and it looks like a site that is either a business generating, but it's a site that clearly is there for a person's livelihood, I think there's a little bit more hesitancy to actually zing a site, basically. So if you've got, if you're an e-com site, if you're like a web app of some kind, whatever it may be, I think the sites need sort of a business model kind of attached to it. I don't think, or it's going to be harder anyway to just launch a content site just with content without that content supplementing something. So I think the content needs to be a secondary focus of the site. I think the site needs to serve another purpose, basically. So having that adjacent sort of reason to have the site, I think is quite critical in that respect. And it might be you just stick a shop on top of it. Someone might test sticking a shop on the site, having a load of products that are out of stock. I don't know. There's probably a test there somewhere, but it did seem to be all of these sites had a more primary purpose of that site existing outside of just the blog. I've jumped into this lot. I'm jumping ahead now. All of these sites have real images by the looks of it, right? I didn't see any evidence of anything that was sort of AI generated, albeit would I necessarily know what an AI generated image looks like these days? Maybe not. The quality of them is just getting better and better, but they look like real images, right? And even if some of them are stock, I think just use real images as often and as frequent as you can. It's only going to set yourself up for the longer term for success, even if you ride a bit of volatility during this update. So build out an awesome About Us page as we went through here. Use real images. It's going to set yourself up for the long-term success. So final thoughts. We're still getting reports of collateral damage of sites that have done the above but have still been caught up. I think the facts that I know about those sites being caught up despite doing these things, I think is more of an issue of them making those sites public and shouting about those successes and issues being open around how to beat Google. I think Google's going to start coming down they already have starting to come down super hard on people that make it obvious how to win at Google, that break their terms of service in some ways. Just don't do it. So I actually think the ones that I know that have been caught up doing the above have been caught up by publicizing what they do and breaking those terms of service more than actually doing the right things, if that makes sense. Doing above doesn't guarantee any success. I think Google's still figuring it out. We're 2 weeks into this update. We've got another 2 weeks minimum of the core update, and then we've got another update in May. There's going to be a lot of volatility for the first 2 quarters of this year, and we've got to see what the landscape looks like after it. There's also many factors impacting whether your site will rank or not, and lo and behold, the bulk of this usually always comes down to links. Again, I've seen evidence of sites getting hit that have hundreds of thousands of backlinks pointing to a site that has maybe hundreds of pages. Like, the math just doesn't add up. If you've got hundreds of thousands of links to a site that's just 100 of pages, it just looks super unnatural, especially if the velocity is there's no sort of consistent velocity with it. You've had a spike from somewhere, you've ridden a wave of that traffic for a bit, and because of that, a manual review has gone and had a look at the site and pulled it. The more links you build to a site, especially in the more competitive categories, the higher the likeliness that someone at Google is going to find that site and manually check it. I think in categories that are not YM, YL, you can do enough to sort of fly under the radar, do proper outreach, build good relationships, especially with partner site, partner blogs that are doing something similar. If you're in the local area, local businesses, there's plenty of ways to get good, relevant, authoritative links that will help you rank, that doesn't require manipulation to the degree that we're seeing as well. EEAT signals, this all kind of falls into it, right? The links you get from those trusted sources, and those trusted sources don't need to be high DR sites. They can be legitimate businesses that are listed on Crunchbase, that are listed in Yale.com, that have a GMB profile. Getting links from those sources to your site will be a positive trust signal for Google. So sometimes don't think about aiming for the high heavens. Think strategically. Look to your neighbor next door. Your answers might be there, basically. Last point I've put here is content generation. There's actually been a little bit more chatter as of today with Google coming out and saying that content, publishing quantity isn't a signal. I don't believe it is. I do think it is. I do think if you stick 100,000 pages on a site that is currently just 100 pages, that is going to be a huge signal for someone to check. Google will not want to spend their time and resources crawling that site. They will have someone manually check it, and they'll probably just pull it. So I still think content velocity is going to be an important thing. And similar lessons to the above, just fly under the radar a little bit. You don't need to publish 100 articles a day. An article a day is fine. 2 articles a day. It's not. It shouldn't be enough to be caught out. In saying that, if the article is human written, you'll probably be fine anyway. And sort of penultimate point here, if you are a real business, you might be a marketing manager in sort of a cushy B2B role. I don't know. Your business might have access to all this stuff. It just might not be on the web. So sometimes it's good just checking your shared drives, what you have available, pictures from the last company away day. I don't know. Get this stuff live on the site. Get links to your social accounts live on the site. I know it seems super obvious, but you could be missing a trick. We list a lot of this stuff in our EEAT audit in another video. That'll be on my channel somewhere. Take a look at it, because the answers could be staring at you right in the face. And then the last point to this is I still won't make any wholesale changes to your site just yet, and I'd wait for an announcement that the updates have concluded. If you're talking about just adding a couple of pages here and there, go for it, right? But if you were talking about launching a huge PR campaign, if you were about to pull the trigger on putting another 1,000 articles onto your site, I would probably hold off on that stuff just for now. And let's see what happens. Right? And again, there's no guarantee following the above will enable you to rank well and ride the wave of the update, but it's some observations that I think we can take some longer term learnings for. Wow, 30 minutes. I hope that's been of interest. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. It helps immensely. If you've watched up to this point, if you've actually fallen into the sort of 4 or 5% that do tend to stay to the end, give me a comment. What have been your thoughts of the update so far? Have you seen anything that I've missed out on here? Have you got a site that you want me to sort of deep dive into that I can plug into Ahrefs and maybe we can create a video around what they're doing well, what they're doing badly? I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, bye-bye.